then it'll be. Okay, being 5 o'clock, I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'd like to acknowledge that we're on Treaty 6 land, the home of the Métis, and I'll ask everyone to rise and the city clerk to say a prayer.
O God, let us each in our own way ask your wisdom and guidance in our deliberations. Help us to incorporate into all our decisions those values which will enable us to fulfill our mission, to act as responsible stewards, and to respect and value the cultural and spiritual tradition of all citizens of the City of Prince Albert. For this we pray. Amen.
Okay, and we have no changes to the agenda, so if I could have somebody move the agenda, please. Councillor Head.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that the agenda for this meeting be approved as presented and that the presentations, delegations, and speakers listed on the agenda be heard when called forward by the mayor.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. I second it.
Thank you. We spent some time together. That was good, Dad. Okay. It is now open. Oh, and sorry, I forgot to say that Councillor Tara Lennox-Zapp is online. Councillor Zapp?
In favor. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you. Presentations, we have none. Declaration of conflict of interest, you all know what that is. If you have a conflict of interest on the agenda, when you excuse yourself, you'll have to let us know what the conflict is and report to the clerk. Number 6.1, adoption of the minutes. Councillor Miller.
Thanks, Mayor Dion. That the minutes of the council regular meeting held October 17, 2022 be taken, read, and adopted.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Vodnik.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. I'll second that.
Thank you. I'll prompt the question. The question's now open. Councillor Zapp.
In favor.
Thank you. Motion carries. Number 7, notice of proclamations. I had two this since our last council meeting. 7.1, Economic Abuse Awareness Day, which is November 26, 2022. 7.2, Adoption Awareness Month, November of 22. Those are my two proclamations since the last meeting. Number 8, public hearing. We're going to open this public hearing for bylaw number 22, addition to the fleet services. The fleet services is discretionary use in an M2. So is there anyone in the crowd that would like to speak to this item about the bylaw? None? Then I'll ask the acting director of planning to see if he has any comments about this item. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason for this amendment is to add fleet services to the M2 zone as a discretionary use. Administration has not had any negative feedback for this, and this will actually, when serving the neighboring properties, the Prince Albert Northern Bus Lines is actually considered legal non-conforming, and by adding this, it'll make it a conforming use in the zoning bylaw, which is good for the neighborhood and for that business. So therefore, today we are recommending approval of this matter.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none. Oh, you have a question.
Question.
Okay, question. Go ahead, Councilor Zierakowski.
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple questions to administration, if I may. The pardon me, the M2 designation, for those members of the public listening, what does that mean? What's the definition of an M2?
Thank you for the
Go
question.
ahead, Acting Director.
Thank you for the question. That is medium density industrial, light industrial.
Okay. And the tendency tends to be small lots, but in this case, it may be a large lot, which recommendation is, because it's a large lot, it fits the use within the M2 designation.
That is correct, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no other questions, I'm going to call the public hearing closed. And recommendation from council? Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. I move that bylaw number 22 of 2022 be given second and third readings.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Zierakowski.
Will second?
Thank you. I'll prompt the question. Questions now open. Councillor Zepp.
In favor.
Thank you. Motion carries. Madam Clerk.
Mayor, we have bylaw number 22 of 2022, a bylaw to amend the city's zoning bylaw to add fleet services to discretionary uses by the development officer within the M2 small lot light industrial zoning district. This bylaw is for second and third reading.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. I so move that bylaw number 22 of 2022 be read a second time.
Councillor Zierakowski.
Seconded?
Thank you. I'll prompt the question. The question's now open. Councillor Zepp.
In favor.
Thank you. Motion carries. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Your Worship. I so move the bylaw number 22 of 2022 be read a third time and passed, and the bylaw number 22 of 2022 be now adopted, sealed, and signed by the mayor and city clerk.
Thank you. Seconder.
Will second?
Thank you. Councillor Zierakowski. I'll prompt the question. The question's now open. Councillor Zepp.
In favor.
Thank you. Motion carries. Number 9, delegations, we have none. Number 10, communications. 10.1, elected official compensation review commission. Councillor Kilmer.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the final report be received and referred to Management Committee for review and report.
Thank you. Councillor Miller.
Thanks, Mayor Dion. I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Tara Lennox up, please.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Question for the mover of the motion. I'm wondering, what is the purpose of having this matter heard at Management Committee as opposed to making a decision at this body with all members of council present?
Councillor Kilmer.
Thank you for that question. What I strongly feel is that it can go to management, have a discussion there, gather some feedback to give us some better feedback, and then we can, it can come to council at that point. Or executive, sorry.
Just my comment then is, my thought is that the body that has to make the decision ultimately is the group of the entire council.
Mhm.
And so I'm happy to hear any other feedback or gather more information. But my thought would be that it would make more sense to keep it with the decision-making body, even if we needed to adjourn it for more information. Thank you.
You're welcome, and it'll come back to us as everything does. Nothing gets approved unless it goes through these chambers. Okay, any other comments? Okay, I'll prompt the question. Just give me a minute. The question's now open. Councillor Zepp.
Opposed.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Welcome, Grand Chief. Okay, now we'll move on to reports of administrations and committees. We have 11.1, development permit application for a shelter on 950B Exhibition Drive. Councillor Head.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that the development permit application for a shelter to be located at 950B Exhibition Drive for a term from November 7th, 2022 to April 30th, 2023 be approved.
Thank you. Seconded.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'm pumping the question. The question's now open. Councillor Zapp?
In favor.
Thank you. Carries unanimously. Thank you. Before I move on, I'd like to identify that, and I'd like to welcome Grand Chief Brian Hardlock to our chambers and welcome to our government. And now with that, I will move on to 11.2, Prince Albert Rural Water. Councillor Head.
Thank you again, Your Worship. I agree with this recommendation, so I'll move that the request from the Prince Albert Rural Water Utility to provide water service to the Little Red First Nations be approved.
Thank you. Seconder.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. I'll second that.
Thank you. Any questions? Oop. Go ahead, Councillor Zierakowski.
Thank you. What I've read in this report, and we've heard different conversations going on in the community over the last number of years. We finished our raw water pump house. It's completed. It's up to date, good for another 50 years or so. And so my question is, there's conversations out there with our neighbors that's saying Prince Albert doesn't have the capacity to sell us water. There's conversations about an additional water treatment plant going up in the region at, what, $16, $24 million?
80.
$80 million-ish. So my question is there conversations going on? Are there conversations going on? Are we willing to engage our neighbors and friends and help them fulfill their needs when it comes to clean, healthy city drinking water? Is that a conversation that can move forward now, whereas 8 years ago, Prince Albert was in a different situation? We've spent the money, got some federal money, we're ready to go. Sounds in the report like we have the capacity to help this community, that's great, and we still have the capacity to help more. So that's the questions I'm getting. If there's conversations about an additional water treatment plant going up in the region, and Prince Albert has the capacity to help out our neighbors, both in commercial areas and residential areas, then are we having those conversations, and through what mode or modem does that conversation happen?
Okay. No one's volunteering, but I'll start and I'll pass it to the director. How this request came about is they are losing Muscadet. Soon will commission their only water treatment plant, and we were supplying 260 homes with water. In this case, it'll be 100 homes, so we did have it, but in our future capacity, we do have a lot. So I'll just quickly ask the director to sum that up. Go ahead, Director.
Thank you for that question. So I guess at the level of conversation that you're looking for, Councillor, I think it would be most appropriate if it was like from Reeve to the mayor sort of thing, or from a town, like if it's Birch Hills or Shawbrook to the mayor. And if that was applicable and we were on board and they were on board, then we would discuss at our level, at the administration level, from Public Works to theirs. But as far as our ability, definitely, as you can see in the report, we're more than capable of supplying ourselves, our future, and all of our neighbors. We're only at 49% of the capacity of our treatment system on the water side.
Thank you. That helps me out, because certainly we've had conversations with our colleagues in the region about the providing of city water. And I think when we read and hear in the media about the progress that's going forward with a potential additional water treatment plant, it's going to be paid by tax dollars. And we have the capacity here in Prince Albert. And if we're going to spend upwards of $80 million for an additional water treatment plant not far from the city of Prince Albert, the use of those tax dollars doesn't make sense to me right now. So I appreciate the information. I'm sure those conversations will continue.
Yes, and I have shared that information that you just said with the federal government as well. Okay, Councillor Brodnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support this motion 100%. And I think, and why I support this motion is clean, safe drinking water should be a right of every Canadian citizen. And every community should have clean, safe drinking water. And if we have the capacity to provide this water service to this particular community, Little Red First Nation, I think that we should do it. And we should do it to any other community that needs and wants access to our safe drinking water here. So I think it's a step in the right direction. It's a good motion, and I'm very happy that the mover and seconder brought it forward, and I support it 100%.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll prompt the question. Oh, sorry, just hang on. Chief, do you want to have some comments? Can you just go to the mic and introduce yourself, and then I'll just, give me a minute, I'll prompt you. No, just give me a minute. Yeah, there you go, you're up, Chief.
Okay, all right. This is a very interesting meeting. Thank you for inviting us in. My first time entering a meeting like this, and it's very interesting. Our band meetings like that are not even this. We don't even wear suits. The Indian Affairs the ISK will send us a check for $250 for it's supposed to be we're supposed to use that as a suit, but the only place where we can find a $250 suit is at Valley Village, so none of us go there. Anyway, I just find this really interesting. I am the chief of Montreal Lake, and Little Red First Nation is part of my jurisdiction, I guess. 106B. This is the first time I've heard of something like this, because we are in the process of we have a PMT. We are in the process of having our own developments regarding the water, and I know it is important to have the water. I know we've been battling this for years. And we are building a new water treatment center in Little Red. So this is a surprise to me, to hear about something like this. So I do live in a city, and I don't even drink the water, so I was kidding.
No.
So anyway, I'm wondering where this came from. I mean.
Okay, the request came from the Rural Water Authority, who we supply water to. So they would have done the negotiations, not us. But what we do encourage is, and why we supported this hookup, for example, when Muscadet comes online, they will keep the lines in the ground. And then if there's an issue where we have to stop drawing from the water, we'll have the capability to draw from them as well. So it's sort of reversed. If they've got an issue, we can still feed them water. If we got an issue, they're going to be able to feed us. I did understand the one at the Little Red is temporary because it's still a few years out before the water treatment plant is built. And they want to put the line by it because it's going to continue to go further on to the north. And so, yeah, I don't know who they would be dealing with, but we just supplied, this request came from the Rural Water Authority.
Oh, okay, because our request come through ISK.
Yes.
The ISK would, and we have our own PRT, so we deal with with water treatment services like that for both of our First Nations.
Yeah, and I understand it's just temporary because of the process. Do you have any idea when your plants will be up?
Possibly they started on them already, possibly by next year, 2023. Yep. But I'd like to, whatever you guys think, I'd like to kind of maybe table it to ISK, because we do have our own PRT that deals with it.
Okay, so we'll approve it because it's a request from the water treatment.
Yes.
And then you just go back to your people and say, where are you and what's up?
Yeah.
Because it'll be a while before we hook them on.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And good luck. And thank you for coming. Okay, any other further comments? I'll prompt the question. Question's now open. Counselor Zepp?
In favor.
Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you. That's all right. 11.3, Brandon Drive traffic calming. Oh, sorry, Barton Drive. No, I was going to make a request. I thought, okay, we're getting into the wards here. Let's get ready. Yeah. Took a while, but it's to you, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. I'll move the motion that the temporary traffic calming measures and public consultation be implemented between May to October 2023. Two, that the Public Works Department monitor and evaluate the effectiveness of the traffic calming measures and report back to City Council by December 31st, 2023. And three, that the Public Works Department review and update the traffic calming policy for consideration at an upcoming meeting by July 31st, 2023. And once there's a seconder, I'd like to talk on it.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Boddick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Oh, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just very quickly, I do support this motion. I think it's a good idea to try the traffic calming measure. It is a bit of an experiment to see how the community is impacted by it, whether it's positive or possibly negative. We may hear that feedback. And then I think we're probably going to hear other areas that want it. There is a speeding concern in our city from many residents. Some don't think so. But all in all, the enforcement isn't able to be there by police. And that's why traffic calming measures can work. So I do support the temporary measure, and I look forward to the feedback from the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kilmer.
Thank you very much, Mayor Dion. I have a question for the director. It says evaluate the effectiveness of the traffic calming measures. And so I'm just wondering, what are the indicators that we would be looking for that say that it stays or say that it goes?
Director of Public Works.
Thank you for that question. So we will put out our own traffic speed monitors on either side of this area, and we'll be monitoring those to see if they have a direct impact. We'll also be hearing from the residents because, as the other councillor just mentioned, there might be some that are saying that it's very favorable, it's working well. There might be others that have complaints about it. We don't know that yet, but that's what we'll be looking for to see what kind of feedback we get from it. So it'll be a multitude of different things. Also, we'll also look at police and see if they've had any change in the amount of complaints or the amount of speeders that they've caught. So there'll be a number of things that we'll look at and we'll bring back to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. I'll prompt the question. Question's now open. Councillor Zepp.
In favor.
Motion carries. Okay, 11.4, bylaw number 23, rezone land. Oh, sorry. Councillor Cody.
Yes, Your Worship, I agree with the recommendation, and I will move that bylaw number 23 of 2022 be introduced and given first reading, and that administration provide a notification to hold a public hearing.
Thank you. Seconder. Council Kilmer?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any questions? Council Zerikowski?
Thank you, Worship. This is that highway commercial area district out on Highway 3 heading out to on the southwest, or southeast, sorry,
Correct.
corner of our city where construction is going on. Do we have any idea yet from the developer about their capacity? How many lots have been sold? How many, where are we at, or where are they at insofar as how many, from 0 to 100%? Do we have an indicator from them yet, how their sales are going?
Yes, they're at 70%. They're going to soon supply a public report for us.
70%.
70. They have a few other deals that they hope to sign in the next week to bring that figure even further. And what's exciting and good for us is that we are counting on the revenue, and we weren't expecting to get full revenue till 2 to 3 year point, but it sounds like it'll be sold out quicker than that, and we'll be able to ramp up. So it's a very positive
Ahead
for
of
the city.
schedule, sounds like.
No, way ahead of schedule.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll prompt the question. Yep. Okay, the question's now open. Counselor Zapp?
In favor.
Okay, it passes. City Clerk?
Mayor, we have bylaw number 23 of 2022, a bylaw to amend the city zoning bylaw to rezone signature development property from future urban development to the C4 Highway Commercial Zoning District. This bylaw is for first reading only.
Thank you, Counselor Cody.
Yes, I move that bylaw number 23 of 2022 be introduced and read a first time.
Thank you, Counselor Kilmer.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I'll prompt the question. Counselor Zapp?
In favor.
Thank you. Oh, it don't matter. He was sleeping. 11.5, tax land. On Gurney Crescent. Councillor Cody?
Yes, I think it's a good idea that administration have made a recommendation on, and I move that the vacant property located at 17 Gurney Crescent be listed for sale for $74,500, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the sale agreement and any other necessary documentation on behalf of the city.
Thank you. Councillor Head?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any questions? I see nobody in the queue. Questions now open. Councillor Zapp?
In favor.
Motion carries. 11.6, deputy mayor appointments. Now, before I get a mover and a shaker, this is just a guide for next year. We realize some people will change, and you're more than willing to talk to us or the person, if these dates don't work out, to make an exchange in sometime in 23. But then it'd have to come back to council, as I have two city clerks telling me that it has to come back to council, so that's a double endorsement on my part. See what I put up with? Okay, so someone move this? Councilor Gilmer.
Thank you. I'll move that the following list, or the list on the screen, of councillors be appointed as deputy mayor for the term specified on the screen.
Thank you. Seconder?
Thank you.
Councilor Miller?
Thank you, Mayor Dion. I'll second.
Thank you. Now prompt the question. I'll reload the question. Councilor Zierakowski.
Thank you. I have a question. I sort of anticipating this list comes out annually or every 2 years and sort of
Annually, yep.
annually where my rotation was going to be, but I'm a little confused because traditionally 8 members of the councilors take a 3-month stint as deputy mayor for the pleasure of more work, more committees, more events, and additional phone calls for some small remuneration. Have all 8 members of us sat in that chair for the deputy mayor appointments? I was expecting to be pushed back for another 3 months. I was expecting this to take place after the new year in January or February, but it looks like we're starting pretty quick here in November. So I guess my real question is this an accurate list? Like we've all done our rotations and we're back up for another rotation through the number of 8?
Go ahead, City Clerk.
This is an accurate list. The list is a two-year appointment term, and shortly after the election, Councillor Cody was the first to be elected, so then we follow the same appointment process as was appointed at that time.
Great, thank you. And what year was Councillor Cody elected?
God,
Long
we
time
have
ago.
to call
Long
the,
time ago.
we'd have to ask the museum. We'll call the museum to see if they can look it up. Remember, if you need a speaker, Council Cody can talk to, and our guests, if you ever need a speaker, Council Cody is probably the only one in this room can talk about Prince Albert when the dinosaurs used to roam. So if you need that help, he's willing to help you out. Okay, with that, I'll call for the vote. The vote is now open. Councillor Zepp?
In favor.
Motion carries. Thank you. Unfinished business? We have none. Mayors and councilors forum. No one yet? Okay, I'll sort of start and then I'll pass it on to council. First of all, I'd like to thank the residents of PA and acknowledge that we just came through again a large snow event, and we're supposed to get one again overnight and during the day. So I do want to congratulate our crews. Our crews are out there. We're moving as fast as we can. We're a little slow out of the start strictly because we have to wait for some private equipment that is on private property doing their jobs, but they'll join us, and I've already seen the private graders out there. But the other thing I'd like to remind residents, and you can throw snowballs at me later, is that you can phone your councilors about your street or something, and all they can do is send it on to mayor's inquiries. But we have a stretch program that we follow in priorities. We do priority 1, priority 2, priority 3, priority 4. So we will not pull off any of our equipment to do a special request, even from the mayor's office. And so we just ask people to be patient. We're getting better and better at the large snow events because in the last couple of years we've had more and more snow. So we just ask you to be patient and we'll get there as fast as we can. Councillor Bodnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple.
Go ahead.
First, I want to congratulate the Prince Albert Minor Football Association, and in particular the Bantam River Riders for winning the league championship in the, I think it's called the Kidsman Football League, which is basically
Yes.
Saskatoon, a few neighboring communities in Prince Albert. And they, yesterday, on a snowy day in Saskatoon, won the league championship. So congratulations to the coaches, the players, the families, guardians that all took part in helping these young athletes reach the highest point possible in their football career at that bantam level. So big, huge congratulations to them. Secondly, I want to also congratulate another youth in our community, and it's Councillor Edwards' son, Aiden. Aiden Edwards is an 18-year-old kid, and he took on the task of wanting to do something positive at Halloween in our community. And he was instrumental with parental support and of his family and friends in putting together the haunted house at the Carlton Park Community Club. And you know, when you have 500 residents on one day go through that house, and then 800 the next day, that's 1,300 people went through that haunted house. That says something that this young person in our community did something positive around Halloween. And I want to just acknowledge all of the hard work that he put into that and how he inspired a lot of young people to be all the actors and scare the heck out of some of us when we would hear, you know, the door open and stuff. I was there on Sunday volunteering to help Councillor Edwards with this project and with Aiden. So I just want to congratulate him. And last but not least, call to action number 87. And if you remember last meeting, I talked about Jim Nielsen, and call to action number 87 says, we call upon all levels of government in collaboration with Aboriginal People's Sports Hall of Fame and other relevant organizations to provide public education that tells the national story of Aboriginal athletes in history. And today, very briefly, I just want to mention another Saskatchewan person that contributed significantly to Aboriginal and Indigenous sport. And that's Chief Tony Cote. We know it as the Cote Games. But Chief Cote was more than just a person that was enthusiastic about sport and hockey. He was also a veteran. And, you know, that in itself is a huge accomplishment. He served in the Canadian Forces from 1952 to 1958. As I said, he was a sports enthusiast. First artificial ice surface on a First Nation in Saskatchewan. He got that for his community. He's also established the Cote Recreational Complex, and he was instrumental in bringing forward the Saskatchewan First Nation Games. It was his vision and his hard work, along with other people, of course, that brought about that. He was recognized nationally by receiving the Tom Longboat Award in 1974. Tom Longboat was an Olympic athlete, First Nation Olympic athlete, I think out of Ontario, and the award is named after him, and he received that for accomplishment in sport. Chief Cote also received the Saskatchewan Order of Merit in 2008 and was inducted into the Saskatchewan Sports Hall of Fame in 2011. So once again, I find it, I love history, I love researching, and I find it very moving that I learn more about contributions of people to our community, and in this case, I call forward the accomplishments and letting people in Prince Albert and area know the story of Chief Tony Cote. So thank you. That's all I have to say today.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. I have a few to talk about. First off, I do want to thank Councillor Ogrodnik for freezing his butt off at the haunted house on a Sunday. Sat there for more than 5 hours outside, and it was pretty chilly. The next day, I had a heater for those workers that came.
That's all the way it is. We leave and everyone gets to eat.
Yeah. So a couple of things. I just wanted to mention that I hosted a community meeting on October 2nd on a Sunday evening, well attended, over 100 people in attendance. And with that meeting, we invited the PA Police Service to attend, and they did. They attended with Staff Sergeant Moudry and Chief Bergen to answer questions, to listen to concerns, and I think that's very valuable to have those ears available for concerns raised in the community. We also asked Bylaw to attend, and Bylaw gave a great presentation. And one of the biggest things that came out of the presentation from Bylaw was the residents need to be the eyes and report concerns to the city, because there isn't enough Bylaw officers to be proactive. And I thought that was a major part of the evening is to recognize that the eyes have to come from the residents and make sure these concerns are documented on the website or called in and tracked. And that was a good part of the evening. We invited the chair of the police commission to come in and explain the roles of the police commission and how they serve our community. I thought that was important to have them directly involved in the community meeting. The Ward 6 Neighborhood Watch also gave a presentation on how important it is to be eyes in relation to property crime and how people can join these neighborhood watches that are out and just simply be the eyes. If there's a suspicious person walking in, and they invited several people that were in attendance at that meeting to the group and expanded it, and that's very important. And lots of positives came out of that community meeting. Next, I want to talk about partnerships. And I just look at the many leaders that we have in the chamber right now and how important partnerships are to our community. And I know lots are working hard on, the homeless shelter that we passed tonight. Without those partnerships and working together, that wouldn't have been possible. And I think ongoing, the partnerships are going to be huge. Not one organization can do things on their own to tackle, homelessness, to tackle crime. It's going to take community effort. And we appreciate all of your efforts for sure. So thank you very much. I do want to talk about the Crime Focus Group. So the Crime Focus Group, as you all know, we sent a letter to the Premier in middle of August requesting additional officers to come in and help tackle some of the gang concerns, the drug concerns in our community. And we invited the Premier to have an in-person meeting. And thankfully, October 20th, some of the groups, including Councillor Head and myself, some of the people were able to meet with the Premier in person and to discuss some of the solutions. He did, during that meeting, he did ask us to be patient. There was some announcements coming out on the following Wednesday, which he did talk about, a warrant reduction or a warrant chasing group coming to Prince Albert. We're not sure of the exact results that'll have on Prince Albert, but we're hopeful and positive that can help our city. But he also listened to our concerns, and that's important. He did ask for a subcommittee to be formed to deal with and to discuss some of the concerns raised over the provincial corrections and release planning, and I think that's positive. We do hope to meet with Minister Tell in the very near future. That was something the Premier talked about, is having the minister come down and talk with us in person. And I think that we need that to happen very quickly. What I liked about the meeting was the Premier was listening to the concerns. I think it's important that he took time out to meet with our group and listen to our letter that was formed. But the reason he listened was because we had many partnerships that endorsed the letter. And that's important. Again, working as a community to tackle the issues at hand and working forward to positive solutions. And I think that's everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Gilmer.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I would like to echo what Councillor Edwards said. We too hosted 2 community meetings in Ward 7, one in Southwood and one for the East Hill residents, both very well attended, and exactly the same concerns were raised. The police chief listened. There was really good discussion, and I think people left recognizing that we're a community. We need to keep our eyes and ears open, report everything that we see, and look after each other as neighbors. So I echo what Councillor Edwards had from his. I also would like to talk about, quite often I talk about 2 degrees of Prince Albert and all the greatness that anything that happens in the world it's within 2 degrees, you can find within a couple of minutes of conversation a link to Prince Albert. And this past weekend, that held true with the Huskies win. There were 3 individuals that brought that win that can be tied directly to our community, and that is Mr. and Mrs. Holash's grandson, Mr. and Mrs. Bill Watson's grandson, and as well the Miller family, their grandson. So that win, without Prince Albert, would not have occurred. So thank you very much to those families. They are outstanding families, and their kids, their grandkids, amazing.
And they will be playing next Saturday at 1 o'clock. Anyone wants to go to Griffith Stadium in Saskatoon for it's the Vanier Cup? Oh, the Hardy.
Hardy.
And then after they win there, then they go to Vanier Cup.
Thank you very much, Bear.
Yes. Okay. Councilor Zurikowski.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to throw some kudos towards one of the doers in our community.
Thank you.
And as you know, yeah, that's a long list, but I don't see it there yet. Good stuff. One of the doers are in our community, as you know, doers do.
Yes.
And as was alluded to here earlier, we have a lot of doers in our community, and partnerships is really important. That's how we get things done in Prince Albert and area. But I want to throw a spotlight on one of our doers who has recently retired with his career. Grant Gustafson recently this September retired from Share as the manager after a long career of 30 years. He continues to be involved in other charities and special projects, and he continues to be an active member of the Sask Rivers School Board, as he has for the last, I think, at least 25 years. He's dedicated a lot of time towards our kids in the community. He is also currently president of the local cabinet association around Lake, where I believe he's often been seen running around with his chainsaw. And I did want to take a moment on your behalf and behalf of council themselves to congratulate Grant for all the work he's done in our community with his organization with Share, and again, the partnerships that have been able to exist between Share and the city, and the good work they've done on their own over the decades. So Grandpa Grant, congratulations, and I know you're going to enjoy your 6.5, I believe it is at this point, grandkids.
Thank you very much. Okay, I see nobody else in the queue. No? Oh. Councilor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. On Saturday, the 26th of November, the Downtown Bid Association is going to hold their Santa Claus Parade. And so there's a couple participants already from council, and all the kids could come out and join the Santa Claus Parade. Thank you.
Okay, I have sort of 2 announcements to make, just for the general public information, so I'll make them under here. Remembrance Day. Unfortunately, this year, the armies are under renovations, so they will not have an in-person service. But what they will be doing is we will be having a service in Memorial Square, if people would like to come down for 10:30. And we'll have a smaller service, and we will be outside, so it'll be weather permitting. And then from there, we'll break and go to Legion and different other places. But the other thing I'd like to share, and this is a big power for our community, is next Friday, the 18th, at 10:30 in the morning in the Chess Leach Room. The government will be here giving out the Queen's Platinum Jubilee Medal. And once we have the full list, we will be publishing it. That is during our council budget time. And so you'll notice the time has changed from 12 to 9. And the reason for that is I'd like to acknowledge, I do have the list, and it is public, that Councillor Miller, congratulations, will be receiving the medal on Councillor Abrodnik. Congratulations, myself as council. And if I missed somebody else, let me know, because there's quite a few people on that list. And then for staff, we have the Director of Community Services, the Director of Public Works, and the Director of Planning. Those 3 were highlighted for their work during our period of COVID. And so I would like to acknowledge that. And with that, I don't know if he's made it public, but I will. We have in the crowd today Jeff Desmond from the Grand Council, and he also will be receiving the medal next Friday. Oh, the Grand Chief's looking at him. He will also be receiving the medal next Friday at 10:30. So congratulations, everybody. Just another great reason to celebrate our great city. So with that, I'm going to move on from mayor's forums to inquiries. Inquiries. Councillor Kilmer.
Thank you very much, Mayor. You alluded to the great job that our city has done with the snow, and it absolutely agree. I do have a question, though, in regard to declaring a snow event. We have signs on the priority one that do say snow route when declared and has no parking. And when I go onto our webpage, it says can be declared when there is more than 4 inches of snow at one time, and that it lasts 48 hours. So I get questions from the public about when that would be declared and how it would be declared, because they want to help us help them. And so just wondering when that would occur.
Director of Public Works.
Thank you for that question. So in the recent years, because those priority one streets are permanently signed with as a snow route, no parking, they tend not to have very many cars parked on them at any given time. So for instance, this particular weekend, with the snow happening on Saturday, when Sunday came along, our crews went out at 5 a.m. and they started clearing, and they did not encounter very many cars on 2nd Avenue West or Marquis Road or 6th Avenue East or 15th Street East and West. So also because it's a weekend, it's difficult to get the word out, but they didn't encounter any issues, so they continued to plow without having to actually declare anything. Most people just don't park on those streets because they're signed that way. When it comes to the second level, the priority 2 streets, there's more of them. They're more through residential areas. There's more 2-lane roads and more on-street parking. So as of this morning, we declared a snow event so that those people will be notified to move their cars because we are starting on priority 2s now. So it's very rare that we would call it on the ones because people have been very good about not parking on them. There's not many houses that face them, and those who do tend to move their cars. We have called it. It's easier to call it during a weekday because all the staff are here and you can get the word out. And that, in this case, it was on the weekend, but it didn't impact us one little bit. All the crews are out and they made good progress on Saturday. Sunday.
Just to clarify, priority 2 does not have signage.
That's correct.
So we are getting the word, we have then declared did I hear you say?
We did that this morning.
We declared a snow event?
Yeah.
And we are now notifying the public
Yes.
that if they're on priority 2 or priority 1, to not have their vehicles parked there for the next 48 hours?
Correct. That was put out on social media this morning and on our website. So we made a actual media notice. I don't know if the radio stations or the written press picked it up yet, because of course we've been at work, but I assume they did.
Then another question to the Director of Communication or Director of Human Services, Corporate Services. I know I would get it right. 3rd time's the charm for me. Have we notified the radio stations, or is that part of our system of communication to let people know? Thank you very much, Director.
That is typically the part of the process. I can't confirm if that was done yet or not. It might have been done by someone in the office, in my office.
So we should expect to hear it, the public will be hearing it on the radio as well during the 48 hours?
Once it's officially declared, it goes out through, there's an email list, there's a media release, and then we put it on social media. So there's a number of avenues to hear about it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Brodnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question to the Director of Finance, and it's about unpaid property taxes. I just want to know how much money does the city have owing to them from unpaid property taxes from businesses or residences.
Director of Financial Services.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ogrodnik. As of October 26th, the city, we had $7,056,938 owing in unpaid taxes. Of course, we have some residents and businesses that are on the TIPS program. So after December 1st, when we collect the TIPS payments, we will, at that point, after December 1st, we will have approximately $3,960,476 unless other people have paid their outstanding taxes at that point.
Okay, and the TIPS program is just the monthly payments that some businesses and residents go on, is that correct?
Yes, they can apply to be on the TIPS program where we take their annual amount of taxes, divide it equally into monthly installments, and we deduct this from their bank accounts.
Okay, thank you. So we have just about $4 million still owing in back taxes for people. So what is the process that the city follows to try to collect those taxes?
So taxes are due June 30th every year. So whatever amounts are outstanding after that point, on July 1st, we start charging interest. We will send the taxpayers a statement in July and then again in October, letting them know what they owe. In the following February, for the residents who still have an outstanding tax amount from the previous year, we send them a letter. The letter will indicate to them that if they don't pay their outstanding amount, then we will advertise in the paper their property and that the city will be putting a lien on their property. This usually makes most people pay their outstanding amount, but if they have not paid, then in March or April, we do send that advertisement out. And then for those that still haven't paid, then the lien goes on their property the fall in September of that year.
Okay, so I'm interested in, in the people that they get all these notices and I assume that we try to put them on a payment plan to encourage them to pay the taxes, et cetera. I know even here we've waived sometimes penalties when a person said, they'll pay. We've done that. But if they still don't pay, what is our options as a city then to get that money in those taxes? What's the final straw?
So we still try and work with the taxpayers all along to come up with payment arrangements so that they can pay their outstanding taxes. We do contact mortgage companies and try and work with them to collect the outstanding taxes. So we do try everything available to us to help them pay whatever's left owing. So on average, we are only taking over between 1 to 5 properties a year, depending on the year.
Okay, so that's our last straw. After all those attempts are made, you finally take the property and the city then has that property in lieu of the taxes that weren't paid?
After the lien goes on the property, there's still a number of steps that we have to follow, and all these steps are outlined in the Tax Enforcement Act. So there still are a number of steps after the lien goes on. It usually takes up to 3 years before we actually take title of a property. Before that, we'll work with the Provincial Mediation Board as well to work with the property owner to help us collect these taxes.
Okay, thank you. And so you said approximately anywhere from 1 to 5 properties you
Per-
take the title each year.
Right.
How many
and
of those would be businesses?
that I would have to check for you.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the help in explaining those taxes that are unpaid and the process that the city goes through. And it's years before we actually take a property. So you have to be pretty delinquent or not making any attempt to pay your taxes, like all of us pay property taxes, before the city takes over that property, whether it be on Central Avenue or some residence somewhere around the city.
That is correct. We do whatever we can to help them pay off their taxes.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Your Worship. This question would be to the Director of Public Works, How many graders and loaders do we, the city operate during the large snowfall that we would have had last night or 2 nights ago?
Director of Public Works.
Thank you for that question. If you recall our discussions last winter, we have 14 pieces of equipment that we put out each year, or each time there's a snow event. We presently have 4 graders total.
4 graders and how many loaders approximately?
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but I think we have about 6 when you include the ones that we borrow from other departments. And then we have our tandem axle trucks for hauling snow.
Right.
We have, I think, 8 of those. And then we have the private contractors, as the mayor alluded to. Once they're finished their private contracts in shopping malls and parking lots, then they join our crews in clearing the streets.
So in a snowfall like this, how many private operators are available?
That totally depends. Like, sometimes you don't get anybody for a week or 2. Other times, everybody's available. It totally depends on what contracts they have.
Okay, thank you. And the cost to add a grader, one grader, the piece of machinery, how much would that be? Just to purchase one grader,
Well,
approximately?
off the top of my head, it depends on the size of the grader, but they're easily running $500,000 now.
$500,000 to $1 million probably, right? I think. So to operate and maintain and staff that one piece per year, how much roughly would that cost a year?
Again, that
question,
would be
I
a really
understand.
tough question. I mean, we do have an item coming up in budget for some extra staff to run equipment, because we do have actually more equipment than we have permanent staff that can run them. So, but that would be a tough question for me to answer
Yeah,
at this time.
my thoughts are it'd be at least 150 to 200,000 a year. operate that
Something
piece.
to that effect.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. I'd like to remind everyone, you fill in your queries on the sheet and turn them in to the city clerk. So we're moving on to number 15, which is councillor inquiry responses. Councillor Zierakowski.
Receive and file.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Gilmer.
I'll second that.
Thank you. I'll prompt the question. Questions now open. Councillor Zepp.
In favor.
Motion carries. Okay, number 16, notice of motions. I seen one, like, come on. Councillor Brodnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My notice of motion is dealing with snow. It's that time of the year. And it reads something like this, that administration install snow fences along 15th Avenue East by Holy Cross School, Peterson Drive in Crescent Acres, stopping the snow from blowing from the field, and along Muzzy Road by the mailboxes in the new park, just to prevent the snow from blocking those community mailboxes. And I'm sure by the next meeting, we'll add to the list from other areas of the city. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move on then to motions, and I'll pass the chair to Councillor Kilmer, if you'll arm your alarm, because they're both mine.
Okay. Mayor?
Okay, I make the following motion, that all requests for tax incentives or exemptions or abatements for the commercial, industrial, residential development within the yard district be denied. And then number 2, that the city solicitor and director of financial services review the creation of an 8% levy to the yard district in the way of subsidy for the operational costs for the new city's aquatic center and arenas center. And if I get a seconder, I'll speak on it a little more.
Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Edwards?
I'll second that.
Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor?
Is there any discussion?
Okay, I'll open. What this is it gives the director some tools if he gets some inquiries about incentives. And it was well known when we went into this partnership, weren't going to allow incentives because the rink and the aquatic center is our incentive. And that's why it is selling out so fast, because it acts as an anchor, and everyone that does business in that area wants to be around that facility. And then also during the process, we all know that water parks do not make money. And so what I just said about people wanting to be building there because of that facility like an anchor, that we're proposing an 8% levy that would go directly to the cost to operate and to lessen the subsidy that the taxpayers would pay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Not hearing any. There's a motion on the floor. Move to a vote. The vote is now open. Councillor Lennox Zepp?
Councillor Zepp?
In favor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Carries.
Motion
unanimously.
carries. Okay, second item. I think there's a second.
I move that the city solicitor utilize the small claims court for the city's compensation for the full cost of repairs and replacement of damaged city property. And if I get a seconder, I'll explain what this
Is
one
there a
is.
seconder? Councillor Edwards?
I'll second that, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Go ahead, Mayor.
Again, what this is we have a tool that we can use in our toolbox, small claims court. And what happens, we identify people that have done damage to our property, and in some cases, extensive damage, especially when they get their vehicles on, our playground that was hit once and on our other facilities in our parks. And I do write the letter all the time to the court asking them to give us our damages. But it's not a high priority to them, and that we know the person is, we have them on video, we convict them of a criminal offense. So I believe that as taxpayers, we should not be paying. And I'll get the director, but if I remember roughly last year, community service paid out about $100,000 in damages. And that's a big amount. That's almost a splash park. So I think it's important as us, as leaders in our community, that we're prudent. And if we catch these people that doing damage to our property, that we hold them accountable and at least get the money that they've caused the damage to the facility, so we don't have to use taxpayers' dollars.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
Tara Lennox Zepp, please.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. First, I would ask, do we have the city solicitor present for today?
Yes, he is.
Could I please just ask if the city solicitor has any thoughts if this motion were to pass, if this is something that from the city solicitor's perspective is feasible?
Go ahead, City Solicitor.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Lennox Zepp. Yes, I think this is quite workable. If there's a mechanism now that identifies damaged property damaged by third parties, that motivates the mayor to write letters to the Crown for purposes of getting compensation through the provincial court criminal proceedings, that those references can be made to our office. We can very efficiently, I think, create a small claims summons. The matter of service, I suppose, becomes a question, and how we can find the person. Sometimes these persons are underage, or they may be migrant and may be difficult to find. But if they can be located with assistance with perhaps the city police, we can serve them. In many occasions, these individuals don't show up for small claims hearings, and so default judgments can be quite easily granted, and then it's a question of whether they have the wherewithal to enforce them. So, I would suggest it's worth a it's worth the undertaking to see how it goes, and we can report back to council if there's any inefficiencies or any lack of success in that process, but I think it's worth the undertaking.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion on the floor. We'll move to a vote. Councillor Lennox Zup,
In favor.
thank you.
Passes unanimously.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. I'll turn the chair back to,
Okay, and 18, public forum, we have none. Councillor Kilmer,
I move to adjourn.
thank you. Seconder? Thank you. I'll prompt the question. Councillor Zapp,
In favor.
it's open. And it carried unanimously. We're adjourned. Thank you. Very good meeting. And thank you, guests, for attending, and be safe.